on a Saturday night.
Hello guys, this is the Gaming Revolution here and welcome back to an all new Black Ops 3 Zombies video. Today I thought that I would explain the storyline of Mob of the Dead and Shadows of Evil from the Call of Duty Zombies timeline. Now this video is yet another pre-recorded video. I'm currently on holiday for a few weeks, so I do apologise if I've not been keeping you up to date with any new news or information that has been releasing, or if any new trailers have dropped and you're wondering why I've not been covering them. That is indeed why, but I'll be covering absolutely everything once I am back, so don't you worry about that. Now, I never got to cover the timeline when it was originally released. I was just too busy with exams because it was releasing when all my exams were about, so I've never really covered the timeline. So I figured that since I'm going to be gone for a few weeks, this would give me a good opportunity or a good window to finally get to have a look at some things within the timeline that I've never covered on my channel. Now, these things may have been covered by countless other channels already, but I've got to make like 20 videos in a couple weeks. So as you can probably tell, it's going to be quite hard to get all this content out. But if you do go on to enjoy this video by the end of it, make sure to drop a like down below. Let's try and go for 1,115 likes on today's video, as well as subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future upload here on the channel. And don't forget to turn notifications on to ensure furthermore that you never miss an upload. But with that all out of the way, let's get straight on into the video. So I'm going to give an overview of the entire storyline of Dimension 63 from the timeline, which will explain the whole storyline of Mob of the Dead as well as Shadows of Evil, which links back to the Transit crew. So on January the 15th, 1292, the Great War began between humanity and the Apothegons. On April the 14th, 1294, Sir Pablo Marines, aka the Mexican test subject, is saved from the clutches of a Magua by 4 unknown heroes. They would later become known as Primus. On December the 31st, 1299, together with the Keepers, Primus defeats the Apothegons, bringing the Great War to an end. On January the 1st, 1300, before they seemingly disappear from history, Primus instructs the Wolf King to begin building Der Eisendrache. On February the 18th, 1300, Pablo begins documenting the Great War, including all he has learned about the Keepers, Apothegons, and Element 115. Regarding Element 115's power, he notes that a site in northern France contains massive deposits of the element. On June the 4th, 1300, in northern France, a tomb is constructed to honor the fallen soldiers of the Great War. Within it, the statues of Primus are constructed to symbolize the hope that if one day a great evil falls upon mankind, they may return. On July the 17th, 1898, Edward Richtofen's parents die. On February the 20th, 1905, Takeo Masaki fights in the Battle of Mukden. On August the 11th, 1906, Richtofen begins his studies at Heidelberg University under the tutelage of Dr. Ludovic Maxis. Having lost his parents, Richtofen comes to view himself as a father figure. On July the 3rd, 1912, Richtofen and Maxis join Group 935. On June the 4th, 1914, Richtofen is visited by another version of himself, handing him some blood vials. He explains, "You will need this blood. When the time comes, it will protect you," before stepping back through the rift. On January the 5th, 1915, Maxis invents the Mauser prototype. On August the 28th, 1916, the journal of Sir Pablo Marines, Knight of the Great War, is discovered by Group 935. On March the 23rd, 1917, using information gathered from Pablo's journal, Group 935 begins work at a dig site in northern France, where they discover a series of underground tombs. On April the 21st, 1917, Group 935 discovers what appears to be the entrance to the tomb's main chamber. They struggle to gain access. On May the 11th, 1917, unable to access the main chamber, soldiers listen to a gramophone to alleviate their frustration. When listening to a recording of La Source Noire, the entrance to the main chamber unexpectedly opens. The camp's exposure to Element 115 begins. On May the 21st, 1917, using information from Pablo's journal and the tomb's main chamber, Maxis draws schematics for the creation of 4 elemental staffs and instructs Richtofen to begin their construction. On May the 29th, 1917, the more Maxis reads of the Great War, the more he begins to question his understanding of the scientific world and the true nature of the universe itself. He finds himself open to the possibility of a higher power, which we obviously is Dr. Monty. On June the 11th, 1917, as Group 935 experiments with Element 115, they successfully create localized energy fields which appear to function as portals. Noting that objects can pass through them, Maxis speculates that the rifts may have open gateways across space and time. The rifts allow Samantha to reach out to Maxis from Agartha. She begs for help and ultimately reveals she is his daughter. On June the 15th, 1917, an ancient box with the power to manifest weapons from different eras arrives through a portal. Maxis fears that Element 115 is disrupting the space-time continuum. On July the 1st, 1917, following the installation of Element 115 power generators, reports surface regarding ancient figures emerging from the dig site, corresponding with the mysterious deaths of a number of Group 935 soldiers. The ancient figures are undead knights from the Great War. On August the 3rd, 1917, Nikolai Belinsky is sent into exile. On September the 10th, 1917, using Element 115, Group 935 constructs Frey, Odin, and Thor, giant robots who they believe will secure victory for the Central Powers. On September the 22nd, 1917, Richtofen notes that in spite of Group 935's progress at the dig site, he is troubled by Maxis' growing obsession with Pablo's diary. On October the 6th, 1917, Takeo Masaki is dispatched to France by the Emperor to gather intel on Group 935's weapon technology. On November the 19th, 1917, following reports of prototype armored weaponry, strange lights in the sky, a mysterious plague, and even giant metal men, Titan Dempsey is deployed in northern France to assess the extent of Group 935's capabilities. On December the 10th, 1917, already exiled in Europe, Nikolai receives new orders from the Imperial Russian Army to investigate the enemy war machine. Still loyal to the motherland, he willingly obliges. On February the 23rd, 1918, Nikolai writes of the ongoing civil war in his homeland. He does not expect peace to last long, but he is enjoying his time in France. On March the 2nd, 1918, learning that the Emperor wishes to meet him to discuss a matter of great importance to our nation, Takeo writes that he feels a growing sense of dread in the wake of his recent dark, twisted dreams. On April the 14th, 1918, despite ongoing battles, Dempsey fares well in northern France. In a personal letter, he reveals that both the Japanese and Russian armies have also sent spies to investigate the activities of Group 935. On May the 1st, 1918, Maxis is obsessed with the voice of Samantha, who now speaks to him constantly. He believes her to be the key to everything. On May the 12th, 1918, believing that his mentor has been affected by Element 115 like others at the dig site, Richtofen reports Maxis' erratic behavior to Group 935 senior staff. On May the 13th, 1918, Richtofen learns from Pablo's journal that the northern France dig site may be the single largest deposit of Element 115 on Earth. He believes this explains why it has affected so many at the site. On May the 14th, 1918, now completely consumed by Samantha's voice, Maxis swears he will no longer serve Group 935's mission. On June the 4th, 1918, Element 115 awakens the undead knights from the Great War and quickly consumes the camp. Maxis is rendered catatonic by the element. Richtofen removes his brain before he turns. Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo unite with Richtofen on the battlefield and help free Samantha from her imprisonment in Agartha. Primus has been reunited. Samantha sends Primus to their next destination. Maxis' brain arrives in Agartha and Dr. Monty decides to step in. Monty brings Maxis' brain to the house and wipes the Maxis corrupted by dark ether from existence. So now we're going to get into Mob of the Dead's storyline. That's been Origins, but it's definitely necessary to hear that before you hear this. So on July the 18th, 1922, Salvatore Sal DeLuca opens gambling houses across Chicago. This marks the beginning of the DeLuca crime family. On February the 17th, 1923, Billy Handsome joins the DeLuca crime family as a hitman. Sal will come to look at Billy as the son he never had. On September the 18th, 1923, an expert in gambling and rigging sporting events, Michael Finn O'Leary begins working for Sal. On March the 23rd, 1924, Finn marries Angelina Bow, an aspiring starlet with delusion of grandeur. On March the 1st, 1929, Sal writes of his frustration with Chicago's finest. After many years of successful bribes with the city, it becomes clear that it is no longer an option. On May the 11th, 1930, Sal begins to work with Albert Al Arlington, an associate associate in LA known for being a master schemer and bank robber. On October the 10th, 1930, Finn informs his lawyer he will not accept divorce from Angelina, saying she can lead this marriage the day she leaves this earth. On October the 11th, 1931, after the LA heist for Sal goes wrong, Al wakes up in the hospital. On October the 28th, 1931, while in the hospital, Al submits Icarus from Mars for publication as a comic strip. It is his third attempt. It is denied again. On November the 11th, 1931, angry and frustrated with his collapsing empire, Sal kills a prostitute. No longer willing to turn a blind eye, Chicago Police Department arrests him. On December the 1st, 1931, in an operation against the DeLuca crime family, Billy is arrested for multiple homicides. On December the 19th, 1931, in an operation against the DeLuca crime family, Finn is arrested by Chicago Police Department when his wife offers evidence against him. On January the 19th, 1932, Al is arrested for his role in the LA heist. On May the 14th, 1932, Sal is found guilty of murder. He is sentenced to life in prison at Alcatraz. On May the 16th, 1932, Billy is found guilty of 116 counts of murder. He is sentenced to life in prison at Alcatraz. On May the 30th, 1932, Finn is found guilty of 16 counts of gambling fraud. He will serve his sentence at Alcatraz. On June the 13th, 1932, Sal and Billy arrive at Alcatraz. On June the 30th, 1932, Finn arrives at Alcatraz Island. On July the 1st, 1932, Al is found guilty of grand larceny, grand theft auto, arson, conspiracy, and battery. He will serve his sentence at Alcatraz. On August the 3rd, 1932, Al arrives at Alcatraz Island. On January the 13th, 1933, Stanley Ferguson begins working at Alcatraz Island. On April the 1st, 1933, Al convinces Sal, Finn, and Billy that they can build a plane and escape Alcatraz. On December the 2nd, 1933, realizing the plane will never be completed and embittered with rage, Sal, Finn, and Billy plot to get revenge on Al. On December the 31st, 1933, Finn, Sal, and Billy lure Al to the roof and kill him. On January the 11th, 1934, stepping through a rift, Richtofen secures the blood samples of Sal and Finn. On January the 19th, 1934, found guilty of Al's murder, Sal, Finn, and Billy are executed by electric chair. Now this is where we get into the storyline of Mob of the Dead. This is what we actually play in game. So Sal, Finn, Billy, and Al battle waves of the undead as they find themselves trapped in a seemingly endless cycle. But let's continue. So on January the 10th, 2036, after Buried happens, this is obviously within the In the Beginning timeline, Richtofen instructs undead Richtofen to pursue Victus and recover their blood vials. Since obviously from the timeline, this is in the perspective of Richtofen, and we see that Maxis's endgame is canon for some reason, so Richtofen is now undead. I'm sure there is a timeline that we haven't seen yet, another perspective of the Chronorium, where Richtofen's endgame is canon. That could be what we see within the next game or something. But then on January the 19th, 2036, Primus Richtofen begins to manipulate Stullinger, opening a rift for Victus to begin their new journey. Pursued by undead Richtofen and an army of the undead, Victus enters the rift. On January the 19th, 2036, Maxis destroys Earth and all its surviving inhabitants. However, within Dimension 63, on June the 4th, 1914, Richtofen is then visited by another version of himself. Now, this other version of himself is the undead Richtofen, who hands him some blood vials. He explains, "You will need this blood. When the time comes, it will protect you," before stepping back through the rift. Now, these blood vials are obviously of Sal and Finn from Mob of the Dead, which undead Richtofen collects for Primus Richtofen, who hands the blood to him prior to Origins. That's why Richtofen already has the blood prior to Origins. Then on April 16th, 1940, Richtofen arrives in Dimension 63, where he contacts members of the Illuminati and enlists their help to build a laboratory facility beneath Alcatraz. This Richtofen is the undead Richtofen. Then on April the 18th, 1940, Richtofen meets with Stanley Ferguson and convinces him to assist with the Illuminati's construction of the Alcatraz laboratory. Then on July the 3rd, 1941, Stanley Ferguson reports that the laboratory has been completed and that the subjects will be placed in the stasis chambers upon arrival. Then on July the 4th, 1941, Richtofen returns to the lab under Alcatraz, where he meets Victus, arriving from the empty Earth with the Chronorium. Upon reading the Chronorium, Richtofen discovers numerous timelines documenting their fates and learns about the blood vials. He would later rate on this page, "I know now what I must do, Edward Richtofen, 4th of the 7th, 41. Now, Richtofen then enters a rift to acquire the blood of Sal and Finn. This is the one that just read the Chronorium from the Transit crew. So he went through a rift and collected the blood samples after the characters die. This is before they enter the purgatory-like realm and enter the cycle. Now bear in mind, this is before January the 19th, 1934, where Sal, Finn and Billy are executed by electric chair, found guilty of Al's murder. So he collects the blood samples from them whilst they're still alive. Now jumping forward, after Richtofen has collected the blood, what he then does is he then goes back to his younger self and gives the blood to the Primus Richtofen prior to Origins, and that's what I talked about earlier. That's what he then does. So then Victus is placed on ice to be kept safe until they are needed next. Then on July the 4th, 1941, Primus arrives to collect the Victus blood samples from Richtofen following Primus's departure. Richtofen learns the location of the summoning key and travels to his next location. And then on October the 1st, 1943, Stanley Ferguson leaves employment at Alcatraz. On October the 21st, 1943, posing as Mr. Rapt, the Shadow Man hires the reporter to recover artifacts from the South Pacific and Russia. So we're getting into the Shadows of Evil storyline now. On December the 14th, 1943, the reporter recovers the artifacts from the South Pacific and Russia. Among them is the summoning key. On December the 25th, 1943, as per Mr. Rapt's request, the reporter speaks to Stanley Ferguson, a retired guard from Alcatraz. Stanley gives a detailed account of the deaths of Al Arlington, Billy Hanson, Finn O'Leary and Sal DeLuca. On December the 31st, 1943, as Mr. Rapt's request, the reporter arrives in Morgue City to take in its sights, sounds and smells. On January the 15th, 1914, a meteor shower rains over Morgue City. We hear about this on radios, on Shadows of Evil. There was this meteor shower, and then obviously that's when all these weird plants started to grow and stuff like that, which are the pods around the map. And this is all linking into the Cthulhu mythos, how this has happened before in New England, which links back to the Cthulhu mythos, but that's not what this video is about. Then on January the 30th, 1944, the reporter notes strange mold now growing all over the city. He also notes people are getting sick and acting delirious. This strange mold is the pods. On February the 13th, 1944, a fruit vendor tells the reporter about the ancient order of the Keepers and how they're the ones holding back the forces of the apocalypse. He talks to people hearing chanting from beneath the city. On March the 30th, 1944, the reporter sends Mr. Rapt a telegram providing details and contact information for Nero, Jessica Rose, Floyd Campbell and Jackie Vincent. On April the 5th, 1944, aware of the Shadow Man's actions, Monty writes to the reporter warning him not to give the summoning key to anyone. On April the 10th, 1944, Jessica Rose learns a photographer is in possession of her compromising pictures. On April the 20th, 1944, pretending to be a company executive, the Shadow Man tells Nero's lawyer that Nero's wife has taken out substantial loans in his name. Nero has 15 days to settle before the company seeks reparation. Facing multiple debts due to his wife's spending habits, Nero decides to kill his wife and use her life insurance to pay the debt. On April the 20th, 1944, masquerading as an Internal Affairs officer, the Shadow Man tries to convince Jackie Vincent's partner to admit that Jack's in on the take. Upon learning that Internal Affairs is snooping around, Jack plots to kill the snitch who could provide evidence against him. On April the 20th, 1944, the Shadow Man poses as a film director interested in hiring Jessica for a lead role. He tells her producer the part is hers. Afraid that the photographer could jeopardize her chance at stardom, she asks him to meet her so that they can sort stuff out. On April the 20th, 1944, posing as a journalist, the Shadow Man suggests Floyd Campbell is a journeyman fighter to Floyd's promoter, waiting to guarantee his shot at the title. Floyd decides to wear brass knuckles under his gloves for his fight with Tony King. On April the 21st, 1944, Nero misses a call from his lawyer, informing him the documents were forged and there's nothing to worry about. On April the 21st, 1944, Jack misses a call from his partner, saying he has his back with Eternal Affairs and has nothing to worry about. On April the 21st, 1944, Floyd misses a call from his promoter that the fight was a success and that he has a shot at the title. On April the 21st, 1944, Jessica misses a call from her producer. He says he didn't have a good feeling about the director and it wouldn't work out. However, he's scoring her a lead in a musical he and his partner are financing. On April the 21st, 1944, Jessica kills the photographer and secures the incriminating photographs. On April the 21st, 1944, Jack kills the snitch who could turn him over to Internal Affairs. On April the 21st, 1944, Floyd kills Tony King in the boxing match and cashes in on his winnings. On April the 21st, 1944, Nero kills his wife in a work accident, cashing in a life insurance policy to square away the debts. On April the 21st, 1944, Richtofen arrives in Morgue City to secure the summoning key. On April the 22nd, 1944, Richtofen learns the reporter has the summoning key and confronts him. The reporter waves Monty's letter at Richtofen and orders him to stay away before attacking him. Richtofen kills the reporter in self-defense. On April the 25th, 1944, which is Shadows of Evil, Nero, Jack, Floyd and Jessica are knocked unconscious at the Black Lace Burlesque Club. They wake up in a twisted version of Morgue City, shifted slightly from reality, told they can atone for their sins by the Shadow Man. All four are tricked into performing rituals. Jessica sacrifices her producer, Jack sacrifices her partner, Floyd sacrifices his promoter, and Nero sacrifices his lawyer. Completing the required rituals, the Apothecans are given access to Dimension 63. Realizing they've been duped, the four work with the Keepers to defeat the Shadow Man. They trap him in the summoning key, but before they can hand it over to the Keepers, Primus Richtofen arrives and steals the key. Richtofen travels to Dimension 2210 to secure an innocent Richtofen soul. He delivers the soul to the house. From within the summoning key, the Shadow Man states, "I'll be seeing you soon." On April the 26th, 1944, the Apothecans destroy Dimension 63. So we've learned a lot from that, and I just want to note that the Richtofen from Dimension 2210 we've never seen before. This is a dimension that we don't get listed within the timeline. We haven't mentioned one other time within the timeline, and that's it. But yeah, that's an extensive look at the storyline of Dimension 63. Included within that is Origins, Mob of the Dead, and obviously Shadows of Evil. So hopefully that has explained everything. That has been a long one. As I said, I know this is ages since the timeline has released, but I wanted to do this because I wanted to cover a lot of stuff regarding the timeline, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to do so since I'm going to be away for quite a while. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for the latest and greatest Black Ops 3 Zombies news information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.